Greetings and salutations. Today's Sunday, but this coming Tuesday will be the first week after the elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and in New York City. Two governor races and a major mayor race. And also, there's a mayor race in Minneapolis and in Detroit. But New York and the mayor of New York election and the two governor races were the most watched. And what we might be seeing coming into 2026 is the view of a post MAGA world, a post Trump world. And it depends on who is in office, which part of the Democratic Party, whether it's going to be the leftists, your the Madani wing of the Democratic Party, or it's going to be your more moderate, more rural, uh, you know, perspective. But for far as we know, that we won't know that until after the next year's election. Uh, 360 days from now, we will not. We will know which type of Democrat Party will come forward after the midterms and going into the presidential election in 2028. Now, what I'm about to say is, what do I would like to see in a post-Trump world, a post-MAGA world? You know, if I had the power, right? If I had the authority, the power, the influence, there's about a couple things I would like to see. The first thing I would like to see is these internet companies being investigated. Facebook, Google, slash YouTube, Twitter. I like to see these internet companies to be uh, investigated on why they never enforced hate speech requirements. Why have a rule on social media about hate speech, about community guidelines, terms of service, and yet they never enforced it when it's time to when someone is acting in bad faith. That's one thing I would like to see addressed, and because of based off of that, I would like to see the the investigation of hate groups that use social media companies to advance sexism and racism. Hate groups like the manosphere. I want to see the manosphere and its subgroups, the subgroups within the manosphere, like SYSBM, the Black Manosphere, MGTOW, uh, the incel groups, True Force Loneliness. I like to see all of it, to be investigated thoroughly and such. I want to see that. I want to see that in a post-Trump world, because it might come 2028, might come to 2020 and 32 after JD Vance or Marco Rubio become president. You know, after they are done. Because I think Trumpism is might extend it to 2032, 2036. Depends on who is in depending on how 2028 um, how things turn out. But anyway, the second thing I like to say, right? I would like to see this in the post-Trump world. I would like to see these. I like to see a crackdown, right? I want to see a crackdown on some of these fools who harass people on street corners. You know, I think the major danger to individuals is religious zealots who follow, harass, berate women and children, and well as other men on street corners, namely the Hebrew Israelites. I think the Hebrew Israelites, you know, who stand on street corners, that stand right there in front of storefronts. I want to see a crackdown on that. I want promises. I want to see mayors, governors, local officials, sheriff's departments to crack down on these individuals who you stay. And no, I know somebody gonna say, "Well, what about freedom of speech?" I'm gonna tell this to y'all who can't grasp the concept of what freedom of speech is. It's one thing to get on the street corner and talk about the Lord. I can understand when you get on the street corner, you talk about, um, you get on your soapbox talking about the current events of the day. You passing out not flowers, flyers rather. You passing out flyers and you're passing out literature to advance your cause. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you Hebrew Israelites who I be seeing around Austin. I see y'all about to take over Dallas. I see you Negroes over there trying to follow women around, yelling at them, calling them real fours, and I'm being politically correct when I'm talking here. Calling women seem, out their names, women that you don't know, trying to shame, blame, explain women, call them the quote unquote whores of Babylon. Women who might be dressed the way that you don't like them to be dressed, but yet you follow them around clowning them. See, I like to see that happen. I can see a crackdown on you Hebrew Israelites and these other religious zealots who harass other people on street corners. And no, this is not about your freedom of speech. It's not about your freedom of religion. Harassing people is not freedom of speech. Stalking people, particularly women, in front of stores, in front of, forcing other races of people, particularly you Hebrew Israelites. Oh yeah, I'm about to go in on this. Trying to because you see a Caucasian person, and because the person is white, you try to force a white person to kneel down in front of you as a sign of respect. No, no, we're not gonna do that. But that's what I like to see in a post-Trump world: a crackdown on these foolish go Power Ranger. I'm a ninja outfit idiots. I'm part of Shredder's Foot Clan types. The best they do is get them to get a job. Force them to get a job. Stop being up there in front of stores 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning when you should be at a job. And since though we're on this about the getting a job, right? Here's what I like to see in a post-Trump world. The third thing I like to see in a post-Trump world is a is government programs that will assist young boys and young men in order to destroy the manosphere. In order to, and I'm using quotation terms because we know people are slow. I'm using term quotation terms. In order to eliminate the manosphere and to cancel the manosphere and to quote unquote uh, silence the manosphere, censor the manosphere, using all this in quotation terms, right? Is to get young men and create government programs to make sure young men between the ages of 15 to 18, up to, and I say up to 25, that would get them out of certain ruts in life, particularly those who are in the low economic level. For me, I would like to see a creation, a revamping um, of the TWA that Franklin Roosevelt made 90 years ago. Some of the New Deal programs that help young men, be part of some community service on a grander scale. That's what I like to see. And since though we're on this, right, but since I think that would force men, no, excuse me, wrong word, that would engender men, young men, to have fellowship with other men and yes, with other people. When you start giving men tools and a better sense of community, they would not go online, find community online to nefarious individuals who claim to speak for them and then they act out crimes based upon misogyny and whatever. So once they find community with other men, with other boys, less likely they'll be misogynistic and they'll find themselves worth without blaming women or blaming alternative people in quotation terms as blamed for their existence or failures in life. And since we're on that, right, what I also would like to see in a post MAGA world, a post Trump world, what I like to see is a return of mental institutions. That's right. Since Ronald Reagan became president, we have many of these mental institutions has been defunded. Some mental institution has been dismantled. I would like to, because of the school uh, mass school shootings, because we witnessed for the past 30, 25, 30 years of multitude of people being afflicted by violence by hand of guns, and for at least most mass shootings have to deal with male loneliness. And because of male loneliness, we have to bring back um, mental institutions that would that would help prevent a lot of these men from seeking violence, thus seeking online um, propaganda as an excuse to inflict harm. That's what I like to see. Bring back these mental hospitals and institutions. But here's another issue I would like to bring up too, though, since I talk about mental institutions and such. Because I love to see because I'm watching the civil war among MAGA and how MAGA is a racist, bigoted, fascist movement, and I'm actually enjoying the fireworks that's going on. What I also like to see is a racial justice to be the key point. We got multitude of people who have been maligned on purpose. We got people who was maligned by their own government, whether that's federal, state, or local. What I like to see in a post-Trump world is a United States Commission of Truth and Reconciliation. With Big J, Big J, what you talking about? Here's what I'm talking about: a truth and a truth commission that would reconcile what's been done between groups of people. The African American community should be, because of our towns, because of towns, businesses that has been burnt down repeatedly since Reconstruction, tax codes that's been geared to uh, the tax codes that geared to shut down businesses, particularly in the African American community, redlining, all that should be addressed, so that the individuals in that community should be compensated for what was lost from them. What I also like to see in the framework of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission is how is giving the Hispanic community in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, the Hispanic community, how the treaties that we abandoned these treaties, and their land grants have been taken away from them. The land has been taken away from them forcibly. Despite the fact they swore allegiance to the United States, they still had their land taken away from them. I think these people who got the land taken away from them, the Hispanic population, I think that they need to be compensated for what was taken from them by the United States government. What I also like to see is a return of education. For the past few years, we see the value of education. College education has been devalued to a talking point. What I see, how people try to diminish education, diminish intellectualism, where now conspiracy theory is declared intellectual, while science is viewed as a myth. That needs to be addressed. What I also like to see in a post-Trump world, a post-MAGA world, is to address the evangelical community. Right. I want the evangelical community to be addressed. Starting wars in the Middle East, funding money from the poor, working class Christian people who gave their tithes and offering to a church that fund wars in the Middle East through the Benjamin Netanyahu political party or political faction, rather. Not really. Party is a political group, I should say. That's what I like to see. I like to see that to be addressed. I also like I also want to see as a post-Trump world is where we create a actual Middle Eastern actual a foreign policy that advances peace first. And when I said peace, not peace through the barrel, but peace through cooperation. See, far too long, America's foreign policy since the Second World War, we never dialed back the prison. No, well, we never dialed back the military industrial complex as well as the prison industrial complex. But because of the prison industrial complex, I mean the military industrial complex, we see corporations funding wars, while at the same time the evangelical community is funding the propaganda to fight these unjust, unneeded wars. That's what needs to stop. And Donald Trump is in bed with the evangelical community, and he needs to be addressed. Trumpism needs to be addressed. What I also like to see, in a post-Trump world, um, is the when it concerning our police, we need to demilitarize the police. That's what I like to see in a post-Trump, post-MAGA world. That's what I like to see. You know, what I also like to see in a post-Trump world is immigration. I think immigration need to be halted, especially from African and Caribbean nations, because we need to be, well, tetherism needs to be stopped. Yeah, I said it. I know that's satire, but immigration needs to be halted around the world, because we got to get ourselves corrected before we allow any other people come in. We can't have another class of individuals coming into this country whose politics is, not understanding the difference between conservatism and liberalism, while they don't understand what's going on within the confines of American politics and our economic structure. So I, I'd rather have I'd rather have no immigration at all until we fix our the inside of our country. That's what I like to see, though. I'm just saying. What I also like to see is if you ask me, more infrastructure building. I like to see an infrastructure bank that's geared towards um, building infrastructure. But you know what? I might do a separate video on that. On what type of infrastructure banking I want to see, where once you build all of your um, your dams, your bridges, create more reservoirs to feed cities like Las Vegas and desert towns like uh, El Paso and towns like that that's out there in the middle of the desert that's now been dried up by lack of rainfall. Whatever money that's being made should go back to the people. Uh, with bonds. That's what type of infrastructure bank I like to see. And I know this video is going to be a very long one, so let me end it here. When it comes to what I like to see in a post-Trump world is that women should have the right, should have the autonomy, with the exception of late-term abortion. I like to see women have the right to have a choice in their reproductive system outside the confines, notwithstanding late-term pregnancy. My name is Big J, and that's what I like to see in a post-Trump world.